Everybody talks about how remakes are bad or good, or how they suck or not, but I haven't come across a really concise argument as to why, so that's what I'm going to try and do in this video. The main point I'm going to make a bunch of times in this video is that paying to see movies that are remakes is supporting remakes. And supporting remakes is perpetuating the attitude that the industry has swamped itself in. That being, attaining a guaranteed financial success is of greater interest than creating inspired or original art. There are a whole bunch of reasons as to why this is a very bad thing. I'll focus solely on the Disney remakes, simply because I'm sure everyone is aware of them, though the problem is definitely not one Disney owns alone. It plagues the industry as a whole, not just a single company. This is evident as it seems that every prominent franchise that has ever been made has either been rebooted or given their modernized sequels or prequels or some other nonsense. It's honestly hard to think of a single franchise that hasn't been touched or milked for everything it's worth. Anyway, let's get into the reasons as to why remakes are duty. The first reason is the most obvious and rather self-evident, and that is that remakes tend to suck. And this is not to say that a movie that is a remake is guaranteed to be bad, or that it is inherently bad because it is a remake, but that the majority of films that are remakes are pretty god-awful for some reason. Just take a good look at the list of movies Disney has. Now, I haven't seen a lot of them, but I have paid attention to the critical reception of most of them, and certainly the opinions of YouTube film critics like Jeremy Jahns or Chris Stuckman. About 90% of the Disney live-action remakes, the vast majority of them, despite doing really well at the box office, received extremely poor critical receptions. All of the remakes made this year, which includes The Lion King, Aladdin, and Maleficent 2, barely broke over the 50% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Not only were critics hard on them, but from what I know, fan reception to them was also very poor. From my own experience, the ones that I have seen have been just kind of mediocre. Nothing terribly offensive, but just decent enough to be entertaining, but ultimately still feel like a huge waste of time. I honestly don't even have the energy to really deep dive into the specifics of why they suck. I know it might be a bit lacking for me to not tear into a movie in any specific manner, like The Lion King or something, but honestly, there are videos out there that do just that, and honestly, I shouldn't have to. They don't really deserve that kind of attention in the first place. My thinking as to why most remakes suck is fairly simple. Disney, or any company, makes remakes because they are a guaranteed sell. And when a movie is a guaranteed sell like remakes most definitely are, as proven by their box office success, then they don't really have to put much effort into the quality of the movie in order to get people to watch it. People will go regardless of how good it seems or what people are saying or the trailers, just because of nostalgia. They will go to see a lesser version of a thing they really liked when they were younger so that they could be reminded of all the feelings they had when they first watched the original. It's all kind of stupid, really. The second reason is just a consequence of the first. Because Disney is so absorbed with rehashing their content, that means they're not going to be involved with making any original stories. Which is sad considering the original animations that Disney does make, such as Frozen, Tangled, and The Princess and the Frog, tend to actually be pretty good in comparison. Not amazing, but they're better. It's a shame we don't get more original animations. Just think of all the cool new movies we could be getting, instead of just the same thing we've already had over and over again. An obvious counterpoint to this could be that Disney is a big company and they can easily create original content while simultaneously reusing the old. So if they want to do remakes to make some easy cash and it satisfies fans while also making new movies, then hypothetically there's no problem. I think this reasoning is erroneous because it's just a hypothetical ideal. It's certainly not the reality of the situation. The reality is, original movies are few and far between in comparison to live-action remakes. And as said earlier, the remakes are far from satisfying. My last point is a little more significant. Just a few weeks ago this year, MPC, the visual effects studio that created the stunning visuals for the live action Lion King remake, was shut down completely. They were responsible for creating the visual effects for a plethora of major films you've definitely seen over the last few years. The articles I've seen cite something about external market pressures or bad business as the reason, but honestly, it seemed like they were getting plenty of work and what they had worked on had earned billions. But the studio collapsed anyway, despite their flagship movie making an absolute killing at the box office. Now, I can't claim to be an industry veteran with some sort of in-depth knowledge of the inner workings of the evils of the movie industry, but it seems like animators and the VFX artists that work at these smaller studios should benefit greatly from working on a successful project like The Lion King. Like, it grossed more than $1 billion, but none of that money made it back to the people who slaved over it. I suppose it's because there's no union for animators, which results in these studios getting taken advantage of, overhauled with work, and that the artists tasked with ridiculous overtime hours see little of that reward. The money from these movies is going somewhere, but not into the hands of the artists that make these movies. Not even enough to keep them afloat. And that's the kind of industry, the kind of ethics you support when you go to see these soulless cash grabs. You aren't supporting the work of artists, but that of people in suits. I suppose this is a problem that plagues the industry as a whole, and not just the remakes side of things. It just seems to me like supporting movies that exist for easy money only incentivizes Disney and these other companies to be as greedy as possible in all of their business practices. It's just a change in agenda. Almost like the success of these cash grabs alters their goals of making profits in a dark way. I'm certainly not saying these problems wouldn't exist if all the movies were brand new ideas, but I think the agenda of these companies is altered significantly when the movies they're making exist for easy money. In conclusion, I guess you have the right to watch whatever you want and like whatever you like. At the end of the day, art is very subjective, and if it works for you, despite its poor quality, it works for you. It's impossible to deny that fact. But just know that your tastes are creating an industry that is creating poor films, where original new ideas are rare or shut down, and artists are trampled and overlooked. But whatever though, despite all the backlash these movies get and will continue to receive, people will always go to see them, or at least it feels like that anyway. Everybody hated The Lion King, but are now all super excited for the live action Mulan. We're really that dumb, I suppose.